Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Gruely True Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I would like to welcome in my co-host.
Mike, how you doing?
I just wanted to see what you would do. 1981 national champion. I know that when people rank their starting fives in Indiana history, from what I've seen on Facebook, most people pick Steve Risley as the sixth man. How you doing, Steve?
Peachy.
Well, it was that one guy that picked you as the sixth man, and I think he's related to you. So.
We contribute a lot of stuff to his fan page, so he likes us. He likes me. Because I go in and post all of our stuff, our youth stuff to his fan page, and he gets a lot of play off of it. So he's, I told him he was probably stretching a little bit there, saying I was getting a candidate for six man. There's been a lot of better six mans than me. Been a lot of better IU basketball players than me.
Yeah, I thought Jimmy Thomas was the six man anyways when you played.
Well, depending on what we needed a six man for. So.
Well, if you needed an athlete that could score, you used Jimmy. If you needed a goon, you used Steve.
There you go.
I like goons, so it's all right. You're the goon on this show, Steve. And our guest today, it's college basketball time, and we've got Brian Rauf from Fansided and BustingBrackets.com. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
All right. And I know ever since you've met Steve Risley, your readership has gone through the roof, hasn't it?
It's gone up, that's for sure.
Yeah, there you go. So what you're saying is maybe you should start paying to be on the show.
I wouldn't hate it.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm sorry, paying you guys, not paying me.
No, that was you paying us.
No, we'll keep it as is. I think this is a solid arrangement.
Oh, okay. We have this on tape, though, Steve, so don't forget to remind me about this, where he said that was a good idea or he wouldn't hate it. Let's start off with this. Kansas lost to Texas. Yes. Number one, this is a huge win for Shaka Smart, who has to be in a little bit of trouble at Texas. And number two, it just goes back to Kansas is inconsistent and lethargic.
Yeah, Kansas is now 1-5 in their 6 road games this year. Their 6 true road games, which kind of signals the fact that they're not as strong as a lot of people think they are. Obviously, we've talked about this a couple of times about how Allen Fieldhouse is just good for a couple wins for them every year that they normally or in any other venue wouldn't get. And we're seeing just how big of an impact that's playing this year. Whenever they leave that place, they're terrible. Outside of Dietrich Lawson, they have nothing. But this was a win that Shaka Smart needed. The Texas was reeling. A lot of the questions about his job security were really coming to the forefront. I know I certainly raised a bunch of questions about that over the weekend. This is the kind of win, though, that I think if they just kind of hold serve the rest of the way, can convince the brass at Texas to potentially give him another year if they wanted to lean that way anyway.
All right. Now, one more question about the Big 12, then I'll let Steve hit up the Big 10 because the Big 10's struggling right now. But in the Big 12, the other team that's interesting to me is Baylor, who now is healthy and went from a team losing to quadrant 4 teams to all of a sudden beating most everybody they play. Is Baylor for real? Are they dangerous? Can they get into the tournament?
They're definitely going to get into the tournament as long as they don't fall apart down the stretch here. Being 5-2 in Big 12 play with how good that conference is really through 6 or 7, even 8 teams is no joke. And I think that makes them a force or a team worth paying attention to. I don't necessarily dangerous, depending on your definition of dangerous. Yes, they can be. I mean, what they've shown so far and what they did in Oklahoma, beating them by 30 in Norman, I think was sort of eyebrow raising. What this has done, them being healthy, Mekhi Mason, their point guard, who's a graduate transfer from Yale, is now healthy, and he's playing at a really, really high level. They've lost 2 real significant players. They lost early on in the season for the rest of the year, and those losses have kind of made them play small ball, and they're really having a bunch of success with that, and are causing matchup problems for a lot of different teams because of their kind of 4-out, 1-in style that they're using this year, which is very different from the way Scott Drew has used his teams in the past. I don't know if they're necessarily going to finish among the top 2 or 3, even maybe 4 teams in the Big 12, but they're definitely going to be in the NCAA tournament, and they're going to play hard. And so depending on who they get in that first-round matchup of the NCAA tournament, could potentially win a game.
All right. Steve, you want to bring up the Big Ten a little bit, which is struggling?
Well, I don't know the Big Ten's really struggling. I think it's jockeying more than anything.
Big time. No, this
okay,
right now.
Why did you ask me that? Why did you ask me
Because
question?
I figured you'd have some sense, and you would realize the Big Ten is struggling. Because you got IU, Nebraska, Maryland lost a couple games last weekend, and I think now you're to the point where most places I see, you've got 5 Big Ten teams that are considered bubble teams now. So I thought that would mean they were struggling. Since a couple weeks ago, we thought 8 or 9 would get in.
I think 8 or 9 probably still will get in. I think there's always been 4 or 5 bubble teams in the Big Ten. I just think right now what's happening is teams are jockeying. You're seeing Wisconsin start to play well. Maryland's rebounding now from, they had a little mid-season slump there. They're coming back. Purdue's definitely looking very strong. They're moving up the rankings. I know Michigan State had a hiccup against Purdue, but, Purdue's a team on the rise. And Michigan both are still in the top 6. They're still teams that are going to vie for the Final Four. And I just think you're seeing, the Indianas and the Iowas, some of the other teams that were early pretenders early in the season are kind of slipping a little bit, kind of more of a bubble situation. See their teams kind of jump up and start to familiarize themselves with getting ready for tournament play, starting to do things the right way, and start to elevate their game as teams all should be doing right now. So I don't know that it's really struggling as much as it is just jockeying. Just my opinion.
Brian, what's your opinion?
I think the team that's only really struggling right now would be Nebraska. The loss of Isaac Copeland only amplifies those struggles. I think they're a team that's in real danger. But I agree. I think we've just seen a flip within those teams in the middle, as opposed with who's struggling and who's playing well right now. Maryland was playing really well. That loss to Illinois kills them, but at the same time they're going down. Purdue is surging up the rankings with a long win streak. Wisconsin has sort of flipped won a bunch of games in a row. Indiana, we talked about a bunch last week, has also really struggled a bunch in this recent stretch here, really this whole entire month. I'm not ready to write Indiana totally off just yet, but I think Nebraska is probably the only team in there outside of the Hoosiers that I think has really struggled to the point where I don't know how much hope I have in their ability to turn it around.
Yeah, I think too. I think these other teams that are moving up, like the Marylands, the Wisconsins, are going to keep teams like Indiana, Iowa, maybe Ohio State if they can turn things around, but they're struggling too, because these teams are going to be high quadrant ranked teams, and they're going to be quality wins, and they're just going to play well in the seeding process. And I know you do bracketology, so you can speak to it much greater than I can, but I think the fact that other teams are rising up in the Big Ten now creates more opportunity for the bubble teams in the Big Ten to solidify. I still think realistically you'll see 7 or 8 teams out of the Big Ten make it. I don't know where Indiana's going. Tonight's a big test for them. This is probably their easiest game to win in the last 6, in the next 2 or 3. If they don't win tonight, they may be looking at a very dismal season or the NIT. I think that's me personally. But the more these other Big Ten teams come up, the more it benefits the teams like Indiana, Ohio State, and Iowa. They get quality wins, they get quadrant wins, and it helps them in the ranking process. Am I right or wrong there, Brian?
No, you're definitely right. And that's one of the advantages that a lot of bubble teams. And
Mike, did you see I didn't ask you that? Hang on, Brian.
Because this is the thing.
I didn't ask you that question.
It's wrong. When does Indiana play Maryland again?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure they do it sometime.
No, they
don't play Maryland twice.
They
play
Michigan
don't play twice.
State. They still got to play Michigan State twice. The only teams you can put in that, maybe Iowa. Iowa's 16-5, and Ohio State.
They got to play Wisconsin. They didn't play Wisconsin yet.
Yeah, they play Wisconsin.
They haven't played Wisconsin. They played them once or twice. I don't know. I'm not looking at the
They play
teams.
Wisconsin at Indiana.
They don't play them at home or away. That's good. That's good. You don't want to go to Mad City.
Indiana
Mad
doesn't want to
City's
go
a tough place
anywhere
to play
right now. Hell, Indiana
you
has
think
a
it's cold?
tough time playing at Indiana.
You think it's cold in Lawrenceburg, Indiana? Go try it up to Madison City right now.
I don't really
Madison,
care
Wisconsin.
if people are cold in Madison. I only care about whether people in Lawrenceburg are cold.
Yeah.
You know what was really awesome last night? It is the city of Lawrenceburg has a mayor. His name's Kelly Milan, and he posted on Facebook that he hopes that he suggests all the homeless people just call the fire department if they get cold, and the fire department will help them out. And my first thought was, if you're homeless, how do you have a cell phone?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of pay phones for them to really go to.
No. When's the last time you saw a payphone, Steve?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know that I've ever seen. I'm sure they exist. I just don't look for them. I'm sure they're there.
Yeah, but that'll just tell you how stupid the mayor of Lawrenceburg is. Let's see. Well, he is. I mean, come on. If you're homeless, don't.
Mike, is there anybody you don't insult? Do you insult your mother?
She's dead, Steve.
Okay. Well, did you when she was alive?
No. I'd give her a hard time a little bit. We'd argue about everything.
Jesus Christ.
I mean,
just anybody you don't insult.
It seems to me like this is my problem. It's not that I like to argue, but it seems like everybody I associate with loves to argue. So I always end up arguing about everything. But it's not me.
No kidding.
It's just all the people that I know like to argue.
All right. So, Brian, is Tennessee the best team in the country? I don't think they are.
I think they're up there.
They're up there, sure.
Yeah,
we're not talking most talented. Most talented is Duke, but the best team, I think you could make a case for Tennessee.
You could make a case. I would probably try and poke some holes in that case.
Well, so would I. I just said I could make the case because I like to argue.
Yeah. I would still take Duke as the best team. They have only one real problem, and that's their perimeter shooting, which is among the bottom, I think, 30 or 40
but
teams
isn't that
in the entire
a huge
country.
Problem?
Yes and no. I mean, on its face, it's a huge problem because obviously that's not an area you want to be poor at. But they're not a team full of poor shooters. Let's put it that way. R.J. Barrett's streaky. Cam Reddish is usually a good shooter, but he's been in a season-long slump. Trey Jones is good for a couple threes a game if he's left open. And they're athletic enough and are quick enough to be able to overcome that by attacking the rim, especially Zion getting really to the paint whenever he wants, even if someone's sagging all the way off of him. So it's not like they're hopeless in that regard. So, and it's something they've been able to overcome all year as well. Obviously, you'd like to be better in that aspect, but the fact that I've seen them overcome it so much already this year doesn't make it a huge concern for me.
Well, see, the scary thing for me, Steve, is this. My question is, do we start to include Kentucky in the talk of the best team in the country?
Well, that was going to be my next question because I wanted to say this about North Carolina, about Duke. The one factor they have that nobody else has is Mike Krzyzewski. I mean, the guy knows how to coach in a tournament. So, I mean, when you get him in that situation, you're going to have to beat him as well as what talent Duke has. And his track record says, kind of like Tom Brady, you're not going to do it very often. It'll happen. But then that's a great question, Mike. That was my next question. I'm looking at Kentucky just drilled Vanderbilt. They're 6-1 in the SEC. They're climbing the polls like there's no tomorrow. Are they, Mike? Are they for real? I mean, are they just having a hot streak, or has Calipari got these guys rolling now? I say this. I'm one of the few guys. I think Calipari's a good coach. I know a lot of you don't like him because it's Kentucky and you think he's a great recruiter. But I still think the guy, for how he runs this program, the scrutiny he runs it under, and the pressure that's on him day in and day out from alumni, from the sports world, I think Calipari does a hell of a job at Kentucky. And they've never caught him cheating, so it ain't cheating until you get caught.
Wait a second, though.
Well, he hasn't gotten caught.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He's had every Final Four banner taken down before he got to Kentucky. And my question to you, Steve, is this. Why do you consider Mike Krzyzewski a great coach?
Well, I mean, the ability to succeed over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, even in the era of one-and-done players. He still always finds a way to get the players he needs, and he molds them. I mean, a lot of teams get the players they need. Look what Indiana did with Delray Brooks. I want to say Delray Brooks with Romeo Langford. They got a great player, and they haven't done squat with him.
My
Kansas
question
got
is,
some great players, and they haven't done squat with him. So I think that there's
5 national championships. Is that why you consider him a great coach?
Well, it's a factor, Mike. It's got to be a factor. I mean,
Calipari's
Kentucky
won with more talent than Krzyzewski's had, I think.
Well, that's arguable. I mean,
how's it arguable? Did he win more than one?
Well, okay, and I ask you this: name as many great Kentucky players in the NBA as you can name Duke players that have done well in the NBA.
Oh, I think that would be pretty easy to do, especially over the last 10
Okay, well, I can't do it. I can't do it. So
well, name all the great Duke NBA players.
Laettner, Grant Hill. I don't know. I mean, I have to look it up.
Grant
I'm not
Hill.
sure if I looked it up. Yeah.
Okay. So you got one.
Christian Laettner. He was a great NBA
player.
Great
NBA player? I don't think so. Steve.
No, I just said he wasn't a great NBA player. Okay. I mean, I don't know.
I'm winning this argument. Brian?
All right.
This is the thing. Brian knows more than we do because I forgot everything that happened after 1990.
Brian knows more than you do. All right?
I know. That's what I just said. But I know more than you do, which is all that's important. So, Brian, when you look at this.
Sometimes you really bore me.
Really?
Yeah.
What are you, English now? You drinking tea? I bore you?
Yeah. You just bore me sometimes.
Yeah.
With your rhetoric.
With my rhetoric? Can you spell rhetoric?
Yeah. C.
I didn't. No, there's no C. There's no C in rhetoric. You started with C. You said C.
I said
all right. So.
Rheotic. Rhetoric.
With Calipari, I think he's a hell of a basketball coach.
Do you spell Calipari?
Calipari.
Calarmari.
Huh?
Calamari.
Oh.
That's actually what his name is. He's changed to Calipari.
Oh, my God.
He's Italian.
Just because you love Kelly Pickler.
She's all right. I have no problem with Kelly Pickler.
I don't like
sweet.
her. I don't think she's that talented. Plus, I think she's ugly. Also,
Jesus Christ.
I think that everything she does is an act because I don't think anybody could be that stupid and still survive to the age of 30.
And how genuine are you?
What? What do you mean, how genuine am I?
Everything you do is an act.
No, it's not.
You get on the phone before we get on the air, you're all down the dumps.
I literally think you're an idiot. So I don't know how this is all an
being
act.
out in your trailer and everything.
Yeah, okay.
And now it's like, now you get on the air with Brian, and it's like, oh, I'm Mr. Bubbly now. I'm Mr. Know-It-All.
I'm always Mr. Bubbly.
Go ahead.
Jeez.
Let's get back to
little
basketball.
Girl.
We lose everybody.
I'll tell you what. If you had your kid today, you'd probably raise him genderless. All right, so because that's what you see on all your reality TV shows that you watch. But Brian, I don't even know what our question was, but answer it.
Yeah, we were talking about Kentucky and Duke. Okay, nobody else going to talk? I think, Brian, is Kentucky for real? Are they making a move?
Calipari is a good coach. Doesn't get enough credit for as good of a coach he is because people focus on him more as a recruiter and kind of discount his coaching skills. So I definitely agree with that. Kentucky
Thanks for
is
agreeing
for
with
real.
me, Mike.
Yes,
I agree. I said he was a good coach. I'm just not going to put him with
Brian, go ahead.
Mike Krzyzewski like you did. But go ahead, Brian.
Brian, go ahead.
Kentucky is for real. They're not. I think everybody before the season expected them to be this sort of juggernaut, and became very clear early on in that game against Duke that they were not that, and even now they're not that. But they're a team with some lineup tweaks and kind of system adjustments that Calipari has made specifically for this group. They're a really, really good defensive team, and they do well enough offensively with Reed Travis down low in the post, Keldon Johnson really becoming that go-to guy, and then Tyler Herro providing another outside shooting threat kind of out on the perimeter, which is something that Kentucky lacked last year, especially last year. he's gotten the most out of this group. And before that Vanderbilt win last night, which was extremely impressive, they had won 3 straight games over 3 ranked teams, 2 of which had been in the top 15 at the time they played each other. And only one of those games, the Auburn game, the first one, was particularly close. They're a team that's getting better and better with each game that goes on. So maybe by the time they get to the end of the year and they start playing Tennessee, we could be talking about them being a better team than Tennessee, if they keep improving at this rate.
Is it fair to say with Kentucky, this is kind of unusual because generally Kentucky comes out of the blocks at the beginning of the season smoking hot. You know, they hold UCLA to like 5 or Alford to 5 points in the first half or something like that. A few years ago they did that, and they come out undefeated, and they start off the season. This is a Kentucky team. It's a little different character. It's a building. I mean, this is a little unusual for Calipari. This team is getting better as the season goes on, which tells me they may be a little more legitimate than the past, where they just kind of came out on fire and kind of started to, you know, wear themselves out a little bit because they were probably front running a little bit. But I don't think this is a front running Kentucky team. I think this is a team that's going to be really difficult to play come tournament time.
Well, this happens every year. Calipari has a whole bunch of new players when he doesn't have all of the returning freshmen or sophomores or so on and so forth that are already in entrenched roles. We've seen this happen a few times when he's got rosters of mostly freshmen or new players and only a few minor guys coming back. It takes them a little bit to adjust to, 1, playing together, and then 2, establishing their roles, because everybody in high school was the star and score and playmaker, and everybody always had the ball in their hands. It's just an adjustment period for that. And then once they find their roles, they have to kind of learn and accept and flourish in those roles. And we saw it last year too. It takes time for that to happen. He's basically coaching a new team every year, as opposed to a consistent program that builds on itself. He has to start over fresh every year. So early on, I think we saw those struggles with Kentucky still trying to figure out who they were and kind of the role everybody was going to play and what their identity was going to be. They've established that really after that loss to Seton Hall, and Quade Green left, kind of freed up some of that log jam they had in their backcourt rotation. It defined roles a little bit more, and we've seen them take that and run with it and really flourish.
Yeah, and I think – go ahead, Steve.
No. I was going to ask a question because I figured you either gone off to do some due diligence or your feelings were hurt. So I was going to ask Brian to ask you a different question so you can participate.
Continue to
no, I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
No, go ahead. You're asking a question. Ask a question.
No, I was going to, before we move, I was going to move on to the ACC, but let's finish up the SEC before we move on.
Okay, go ahead.
I question, is Crean making any headway at Georgia?
Yes, but there's a lot of room for headway to be made, so you can be making headway without it really making waves. He has them on the right track, but it's still going to be a few years before you really start seeing anything significant come out of that program.
The thing that scares me there, he's still beating teams 93-89. And, well, much like I can't spell rhetoric, I'm not sure he can spell defense.
Well, so in the SEC, with the kind of athletes that he's going to be able to recruit at Georgia, especially in the Atlanta area, if he's able to start getting a lot of those, it may not matter.
Yeah, what's wrong with winning 93-89, Steve?
Just from my lineage and heritage, it doesn't sit well with me. We won games 64-52 or something like that, or I get it. Yeah, we didn't predicate winning games on offense. We predicated winning games on defense. So, just different mentality. That's all. I've never liked I'm going to ask Steve, I think you become too reliant on being a good shooting team. And we've seen teams that go cold one night, and even though you're talented, you lose because you're just relying on being good shooting. And defense is something you can always cover up and you can always mask, and you can always find ways to create defensive opportunities where if you're not shooting well that night and you're relying on shooting well, you're up the proverbial creek without a paddle most of the times.
Well, just like everything else, you have to find the balance, because we've seen the opposite happen with Virginia year in and year out, where their defense travels, but their offense doesn't come to the NCAA tournament. Right. And so if he can add a little bit of defense, I think that'll be okay.
Well, he had 9 years to try to do that at Indiana, which was known as a defensive power, and he didn't get it done.
Yeah, those Sweet
Yeah.
16s and the 27 wins were terrible. I'd much rather have what we got right now.
Okay. All right. All right.
All I
don't
know
want
is
to bash
this.
Tom
In
Crean. I like Tom Crean. I
1987,
don't want to bash. I'm just saying,
in
is he making
1987,
headway?
Well, in 87, IU, every tournament game they scored in the 80s, sometimes the 90s.
Well,
they beat UNLV, if I remember, like 97 to 93. You know,
right.
They beat Duke 86 to 80. I mean, there's no problem with being able to score, but the thing is this. It doesn't mean you suck defensively because you win 86 to 80. Maybe you're just really
Mike,
good offensively. And if you score more, what?
I would agree with you, except I think that Indiana was so well coached that they found ways to win games. I mean, if they had to beat you 93 to 90, Indiana could do it because they had Smart, they had Alford, they had Daryl Thomas, they had good shooting players, they had good scores. But also Indiana, if you look at that tournament run, there's probably games where they won 64 to 55 or something like that too. So the difference between, but overall the history of the Bob Knight era in Indiana was Knight could run the score up when he had to, but he also had the ability to beat you defensively.
Well, what I'm telling you
is this. Saying some of these SEC schools don't have the ability to do both. That's why I think they'll struggle in the tournament.
Okay, but in 1981, that was the case with Indiana. Most games were in the 60s except like the Maryland game. But in 1987, he played in a different style because he had shooters.
Right.
That team could still play defense, but because they shot the ball well and they scored a lot, it's kind of like a football
the other team more possessions.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
Give
football
more time
team
on the
that scores
score.
a ton of points. So I don't think necessarily it means they can't play defense.
See, Mike, that's an absolute intelligent contribution you just made to today's show. Really, great insight.
Yeah, and I just shot holes in everything you possibly said before that. Did you like that, Brian?
That's okay,
Did I do
because
good?
that's the whole point here is to shoot holes in everything we say.
Debate.
Yeah, great debate. I'm very appreciative of your insight.
I'll tell
and
you
input,
what.
Mike. That's really good.
Since I've been 12.
Don't get cocky now. Don't get cocky.
12, I've been considered a master debater by most people. All right, so...
Let's go to the ACC.
When I look at this and we look at it, to me, the only two conferences that are really strong and somewhat deep, the SEC is a little bit, but the only conference that stands out as really being fairly strong from top to damn near the bottom is the ACC, Brian.
Yeah, I would argue that they're a little bit more comparable, just because I think the SEC, the ACC certainly has more teams at the top. But I think the SEC may have a little bit more teams kind of in that middle tier with the way South Carolina's come on and the way Ole Miss has come on this year. But it's tough to argue against the ACC when you have probably eight teams. I'm kind of wary on Clemson a little bit now, but you have 8 teams that are definite locks to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and when you look, you talked about South Carolina, they're still sitting at 10-10. I mean, right now, I would think that you're looking at, 5 to 6 teams right now that would be NCAA tournament teams, where that could possibly go up a couple.
I think you might have 8 because you have Auburn's still getting in, Mississippi State's still getting in, even though both of them are kind of struggling the past couple weeks or so. Kentucky, Tennessee, both in. That's 4. LSU is in. That's 5. I think you could put Ole Miss, who just fell out of the rankings. I think their resume is good enough currently for them to be in, so that's 6. Alabama is another bubble team as well. And then I know there's one team I'm forgetting. And a lot of people think Florida's a bubble team, but I think Florida's on the outside looking in. And then there's one more that I know I'm forgetting I just can't.
Yeah, and I think with the ACC right now, you've got 8 teams that are probably safely in, and then you've got, Clemson and Pitt, maybe BC with an outside shot?
Yeah, you got 8 teams that are for sure in. They have less teams that are in the bubble conversation, that's for sure. But I think Clemson and Pitt are the two that are kind of really in that bubble conversation, both of which I think are probably on the wrong side right now. But, with the opportunities that they're going to have, it only takes 1 or 2 big wins before both of them are on the right side of that bubble.
Yeah, and when I look at this, still the thing that stands out to me is Louisville and Chris Mack. I think he should be being mentioned to be the coach of the year right now.
He should be in that conversation. There's a lot of guys who are going to be in that. I know Rick Barnes is probably going to get a lot of looks at Tennessee, kind of like he did last year. Even Nate Oates at Buffalo is probably going to get some looks as well. But you're going to be hard-pressed to find somebody whose case has a stronger case than Chris Mack does. I would put his case up against anybody's in the country.
All right, Steve, ACC?
Yeah, I want to start down at the bottom. What the hell's going on with Notre Dame? I mean, is Bray getting himself in a little pickle out there? I mean, they're kind of tanking. Did they make a mistake jumping into the ACC, or is this just an anomaly for them, or they've kind of been on a little bit of a downward spiral last couple seasons? I mean,
they have been. Bray's fine, and Bray's going to be fine for a couple of years. He's bought himself a good deal of time with those back-to-back Elite Eight finishes and then winning the ACC tournament. He bought himself a good deal of time before Notre Dame would start questioning if he's the guy they want to have moving forward. But this downturn has really been just about the overall talent level that they've had. They haven't consistently recruited at a high level. You think back, they've always had a couple guys. That first year they had Jeremy Grant and Pat Connaughton who were leading them. Both of them are still in the NBA. After that, they had Zach Augusty, and Monty Colson was a big player for the team as well, and Steve Vasuria, and all of them are really good college players, but none of them, kind of sniffed the NBA. And then this past team that was Monty Colson and Matt Farrell, again, solid college players, but not really that kind of NBA talent. And now Notre Dame doesn't even have those guys who would be considered, really good college players and all ACC kind of performers. The talent level has gradually taken those steps down to the point now where Notre Dame has a roster of a team that you would expect to finish kind of in the bottom third of the conference. They're a young team, so there's still a chance for them to improve in the next year or two, obviously. But I look at that as sort of a failure on the recruiting trail more than anything else.
Yeah, and then go ahead, Steve. You got more ACC?
No. I had nothing really important to say. I just was going to talk. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so it's like normal. When you look at the Big
definitely.
East, when you look at the Big East, Villanova and Marquette have pretty much separated from the pack there. I think.
Wait. We don't. I had an ACC question. If we're not.
Well, that's what I said.
East.
I said, do you have?
Okay. Well, I didn't know you were going to jump to the Big East. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's just talk. We got to talk North Carolina. They're making a run. Are they legitimizing themselves right now? Are they all of a sudden, because they look kind of sloppy early in the season and kind of like, not a good year for Roy Williams and crew. But all of a sudden now they're starting to beat people with some vengeance. Are they legitimizing themselves?
They are. Kobe White is consistently playing, or at least of late has been consistently playing at a high level, which they need from him at the point guard position to kind of stabilize that offense, to give them a real offensive threat. This year, Little has really turned a corner and is now producing and playing instead of being on the court thinking and being a step slow. He's starting to scratch the surface of that potential that he has, which is why he's going to be a lottery pick, even though he hasn't produced at a great level this year. He's really started to turn the corner. And then a lot of their shooters, too, Cam Johnson, Kenny Williams, and Luke May, were in a big slump for the first 2.5 months of the season. They've started to come out of that as well, which has certainly played a role in this. Now, I want to see them do it against a good team on the road. We haven't seen that yet. Most of their big wins have come at home. Their last game last night, I believe, was at Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech, obviously, that's a road game, but Georgia Tech's not the kind of team that you would expect to test a North Carolina. So I want to see them prove it against a good team on the road before I go overboard and say they're one of the country's top teams now. But you certainly have to like what they've shown so far the past 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, but that's a 6-point win over Notre Dame, a win over Miami, a win over Georgia Tech. They did have a big win over Virginia Tech. But before those 4 games, which 3 of them are not great competition, you had a 20-point loss at home to Louisville. And before that, you did have a road win at NC State. So I would still question the consistency level here. when you look at it, though, the schedule sets up to show us that because next they're at Louisville on Saturday, which is one of the biggest games of the week. Then they host NC State. They host Virginia. They go to Duke. So I think that the questions about North Carolina will be answered over the next 5 or 6 games.
Oh, yeah.
Good point.
So,
let's just finish up the ACC with Virginia. I mean, I'm still not impressed with Virginia overall. I mean, it's a Kyle Guy thing with me. I know that, but I'm just not impressed with that basketball team as being one of the two. I mean, I would take Michigan or Michigan State in a tournament game over either one of those two teams, or over that team. Either one of those two teams over Virginia. Am I wrong? I mean, are they that good, or I just have a personal animosity toward Kyle Guy?
Well, we know you have personal animosity towards Kyle Guy. I don't think there's any question about that. I think they're better than you're giving them credit for. I think they're as well equipped as they have been to make a long run in March. They still kill you with efficiency, which isn't something that's overly impressive. When you watch them, because they don't do anything that really wows you. They just sort of gradually wear you down, and you look at the scoreboard, and you're down 15. And when you play defense, do you have no hope of really coming back in that? My big concern with Virginia, we saw it again last night, is their ability to handle pressure. The loss to UMBC in March that everybody loves to talk about last year, yes, Jairus Lyles went off for UMBC, and Virginia didn't have DeAndre Hunter. But the big thing that UMBC talked about was the fact that Virginia hadn't really been pressed at all that year, and they didn't know how they'd handle it, and Virginia completely fell apart when UMBC put any kind of pressure on them. NC State last night was the first team this year that I've seen, at least, that really kind of picked them up full court and kind of ran a press and made them play offense from 94 feet. And Virginia turned it over 16 times, which is the most they've turned it over this year. And NC State took them overtime and only lost by 1. That's still the big area I need to see them overcome before I'm ready to anoint them as being a first-year Final Four caliber team. But they are a very, very good team.
All right, we go to the Big East. As I said, Villanova, Marquette have like a 3 or 4 game lead over everybody else. They seem like locks to be in the tournament. I think both of these teams are more dangerous than a lot of people give them credit for. I watched Marquette go to Xavier. Xavier pretty much won 35 minutes out of the 40 minutes and still lost. And Marquette, the thing that stands out to me is this. Marquette's a team that can beat anybody, including at Duke, because I don't think there's a team that has as many shooters that can get hot at one time as Marquette does. I mean, Xavier's up by 10, and 2 minutes later they're down by 5. And when you look at them, and Villanova with Coach Jay Wright, I think both of these teams are at least Sweet 16 threats.
Yeah, for sure. I like Marquette's upside a little bit more than I do Villanova's. Villanova's extremely well coached, and Jay Wright has gotten as much out of this group, I think, as he possibly can. And they're playing a lot smarter and shooting a lot better from 3 than they were early on in the year. But I still think Marquette's the more talented team. I still don't think Villanova has a ton of just overall talent on their roster, which will hurt them as they get deeper in the tournament and play teams that are just as well coached. Maybe not just as well coached, but, don't hurt themselves and then have more talent than them. Marquette, their shooting is the wild card because Marcus Howard, as we've seen, is capable of winning a game by himself. The Hauser brothers are really, really good players as well who would start for probably 95 or 98% of the teams in the country. They have the problem with them is the consistency defensively. They obviously can shoot anybody out of the gym, but we've seen this year when they got blown out by Indiana and then blown out another game as well. They weren't able to put it all together. And we're going to find out that the first time those two play each other is next Saturday, February 9th, I believe. That'll be very telling, I think, for both teams in terms of where they stand with regards to the other kind of top teams in the country that they're being compared against right now.
Well, and I think the other thing that helps both of them, the Big East is not like it has been in the past where you've got 5 or 6 teams are going to the tournament. But there's not a bad team in the Big East. There's not one team below 500 out of the 10 right now. And that means every night they've got to play hard to be able to win. And you got places like Butler where Villanova went and dominated Butler. Xavier, Creighton. These are all tough places to go, and I think the other wild card here and the third team that's going to get in from the Big East is Georgetown.
Yeah.
I really like Georgetown. I think they're going to be really, really, really good next year. I think their freshman guards, Akinjo and McClung, are going to make up one of the best backcourts in the country next year. I'm not quite ready to put them in the tournament just yet. I want to see them beat a Marquette or beat a Villanova before I'm ready to kind of go there. But they're a team that you have to make sure you come and play every night because they bring it every night. They've come close to getting some of those big wins. But you can still see a little bit of the youth with their roster late in games, I think.
All right, Steve.
No, I've been kind of keeping my eye on Georgetown too to see what they're doing, and they're getting more and more dangerous. But I think the Big East is still just like the Big Ten, where that conference gets downplayed a little bit just because they just beat the crap out of each other all week long.
Well, the Big East is the Big Ten because if you took the top 10 teams
right,
in the Big Ten, they're all above 500, and there's about 6 or 7 teams there that are sitting right on the bubble of everything that could break one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Georgetown definitely is a team I think is another up-and-comer in the Big East. Big East is another conference I think it's jockeying a little bit, going to get stronger. I really like Villanova. I love Jay Wright as a coach. And I'm pulling for Marquette left and right because the more Marquette does well, the better it is for Indiana because that's a quality win we have over them. Yep. So, I am definitely pulling for Marquette to win the Big East. That makes us look all much better.
Yeah, and the thing that stands out to me about Villanova when you look at it, Brian, is this. You had a 28-point win over Seton Hall, so they dominated them. They beat Butler by 8 at Butler, which is a tough place to play. And when you watch that game, Butler was always kind of in the game, but you never got the feeling they could win it. They went to Creighton and won by 12. Creighton is a very difficult place to play. They get a double-digit win over a decent Xavier team. They beat St. John's. They beat Providence at Providence. They blow out UConn by 23 at UConn. They handled DePaul pretty easy. So to me, this seems to be a team that I know we talk about the talent level's not that great, but we've talked about that all year. December 15th, they played Kansas. They lost by 3. Which was a game I thought they would give Kansas trouble. Everybody else thought it'd be a blowout because the talent level was so great. But, games aren't always won by the most talent.
That was also the game Azubuike got hurt for Kansas, which kind of knocked Kansas down to being the inconsistent team they are now. Going off of those two in particular, I am curious how much of Villanova's success this year is kind of what I'll call the Kansas factor, where they've just been dominating a conference for so long that it's kind of in the heads of all these other programs, including Villanova, that Villanova's at the top. And so even if Villanova kind of struggles, they bring some of that intimidation factor whenever they go on the road, then it's a really big game. And Villanova has the confidence once they get in conference play, we're better than that team. We're better than that team. Because
doesn't that have an effect even in the NCAA tournament? A team that has been successful, has won the national championship a couple times in the last few years. Isn't that in everybody's head and jacks that game up even bigger when you get to that time of year, especially if they finish the season, 25-6?
It does to an extent, but you're playing against the best of the best in the NCAA tournament, and a lot of times programs that are kind of in the same boat as well. They're not used to getting beat by you every year, twice a year. They may respect you as being the best team from the Big East on a consistent basis, but they haven't experienced it, so they don't have the same kind of mentality when they go up against you. It's more of a big game as opposed to, oh no, here we go again.
Yeah, but my point is there's only a small handful of teams that can be like that with Villanova, which is what I think gives them the capability of being a Sweet 16 or an Elite 18.
We'll find out. Find out. I don't have as much confidence as you do, but I've been.
Well, I don't have that much. I just say what I'm saying is I know this: teams that consistently win are hard to beat because they have an innate belief that they're going to win the game no matter what, and it doesn't matter who Villanova plays. those kids are used to winning, which makes them that much harder to beat. I mean, Steve, you played at IU.
I
a little bit of the same thing.
I was getting ready to say, yeah, I can tell you from experience, having played at IU in the heyday of the Bob Knight era. Obviously, the 76 to the 87 run was the culmination of his finest hours at IU. I always felt that before the game tipped off, we were always a minimum of 6 to 10 points ahead. We were spotted 6 to 10 points, just because people were so intimidated by Knight. We literally, on the sidelines, on the bench, we were sitting there, which was more often for me than I liked, but so be it. Players would actually come down court, and they would actually steer away from our bench, and they would stare at Knight as they went by. They were just like, they were like scared to death of him. And there was that kind of intimidation factor. I mean, I started noticing it probably my junior year. I'm like, I'd look over at somebody, Jimmy Thomas or Tony Brown, or somebody say, watch this guy. He's going to go. He's running up the sideline right in front of our bench. Watch him. Right about the hash mark, he's going to veer left about 10 feet. Watch him. And they invariably would. And that's right where Knight was standing or sitting. And so I agree entirely with Mike saying that the factor of Jay Wright and the fact that Villanova's been there, done that, is an intimidating factor. It comes into play because, like I said, one and done is mental basketball. I mean, it's not the ability to not lose; it's the ability to put it all on the line and win.
Yeah, you got to remember they've won 2 of the last 3 national championships, and a lot of these kids that are going to play them in the tournament were high school kids sitting there watching them win this. So I'm just saying this: I don't think they're going to win a national championship. But I think they're going to be really dangerous when the time comes. And I think in the end, even if they play a Duke would have their hands full with this team. They're going to beat this team, and it may end up being by 10 or 12 points. But nobody's going to get Villanova out of there easy because they're a team that's used to being successful.
Well, Mike, in defense of you, Mike, they're not likely to be outcoached.
No, they're not going to be outcoached by anybody.
They're not likely to be outcoached. That's the thing. And in a tournament, coaching makes the difference.
Yeah.
It does. Because everybody's talented to get to the Sweet 16. You get to the Sweet 16, every team in the Sweet 16 is a talented basketball team. But now it becomes the coaching that separates the men from the boys. And I don't see Jay Wright getting outcoached by anybody right now.
No.
There's
guys that can hang with him. But nobody's going to outcoach him.
Izzo, Few, Krzyzewski, they can hang with him. Maybe even Calipari. But other than that, I really don't see anybody that can really hang with Jay Wright.
Beeline and Izzo.
Beeline, yes. Beeline's a good call.
Izzo.
Great call. Izzo, yeah, I said Izzo. But other than that, there's that fraternity of those upper echelon coaches that what's going to happen is one team's going to make one mistake and Beeline's going to beat Jay Wright because of one silly mistake, not because of a strategy about coaching them. It's not going to happen that way. It never does.
So the last thing I'll say about Villanova, and I agree with everything you guys are saying about Jay Wright and the fact that they know how to win and they expect to win. They're also the same team that has lost in the second round of the tournament 3 of the last 5 years. Yeah. They have those championship years, but I think the opposing team is going to hear a lot more about those 3 losses than they will those 2 wins.
You can, but you know what? Nobody says we're playing Villanova. They lost in the second round. Right now, you're playing Villanova. No. Villanova is the defending national champion right now. And I know anybody. I mean, Villanova talent-wise is not great. I could see him losing in the first or second round, but I could also see him in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 just because of the coaching and the kind of mythical status I think that program is starting to get because the Big East has been really good the last 5 years. And they've dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, in '81 when we won, the only game that we played that I felt we were going to lose was Maryland. First game we played. They had Buck Williams, they had Albert King. They were great. They were in the ACC, and we know all about the ACC. We never had great success against ACC teams in my era, and until the championship game, which we did then. But, that was the one game where I say, I told the story before. I packed to go to spring break with my friend. I mean, I was not planning on coming back with the team in that game. We get drilled in Dayton by Maryland, and my buddy was going to Wittenberg, which is a suburb of Dayton, Springfield, Ohio. and we were just going to drive on down and go to spring break. And I didn't think we'd win that game because of the reputation that Maryland possessed and had. And I wasn't quite sure where our basketball team was because we had struggled a lot during the season, and we had definitely gelled the last 10 games of the Big Ten or 5 games of the Big Ten. But after that, I mean, I didn't think, even in the North Carolina game, I didn't think we were going to lose that game. We were just so focused on what we had to do to win. But that Maryland game was a game I thought, because I was intimidated by the fact it was Albert King, Buck Williams, and Maryland.
All right, real quick. I know Brian's got to go because he has an important.
I had a question for Brian before we wrap up. I know he's got to go.
We're not wrapping it up yet. I was going to give you a chance to ask another question. You just got to give me.
All right, good. It's off conference play, but it's a question I kind of ran across on Twitter. I wanted to ask Brian about.
Go ahead.
Let's hear
it. Kieron Brooks, you familiar with that name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was reading on Twitter last night how there was stuff being put out that he's apparently one of Indiana's big gets next year. He's been leaning toward Indiana. And all of a sudden now there's been so much negative social shading and trolling going on about Miller and about IU on social media that his family, and allegedly his family's come out and said, we have concerns now about the support we'll get at Indiana. Is that legitimate, or should fans be kind of leery of that when they're sitting there and popping off about Miller needs to be fired already, which I think is a joke. He doesn't need to be fired. He's fine. Team's going to be good since he gets his own 4 years of his own players in there. But is this something where idiot fans can really start to screw things up, and players look at that now and say, I don't know that I want to go there, because if and then look at what's happened to Romeo. There's a lot of downplay on Romeo all of a sudden about not being able to shoot, not being a tough kid, not playing hard for 40 minutes. And I know we've addressed some of that, but is that something that needs to be addressed in recruiting, and schools need to be a little more conscious of that now?
I think the stuff with Langford plays a bigger role than the stuff with Indiana in general with Archie Miller, because, coming in, Romeo was as beloved a recruit as Indiana had gotten in a very, very long time, and to see things kind of turn on him, so not quickly, but see things kind of turn on him in this aspect, I think could be alarming for somebody else who, while he would come to Indiana with a lot of fanfare, wouldn't necessarily meet the same fanfare. And with that, may come lessened expectations. I think a lot of people thought Romeo would be the savior right away. So it's an aspect. I don't think it will necessarily be the deciding factor one way or another, but it's just another element to add to a top prospect decision-making. Because, when you think about it, every top school puts a lot of pressure on their players and their coach and gets upset when they go through a streak like Indiana is going through right now. So that's not something that is just a problem with Indiana. The only thing is that right at this current moment, Indiana is the only school, or the school that's experiencing it probably at the highest level.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just was flipping through Twitter, trying to prepare for this show, sort of flipping through Facebook, and I follow a lot of the Indiana fan sites. I follow a lot of the Twitter pages, Assembly Call, Crimson Guard, or whatever. There's a lot of them out there, and nobody is bashing. None of the good sites are bashing Miller or Romeo, but
right.
There's a lot of talk and dissertation going out there about it right now. And in my opinion, here's what I think is happening. I think Romeo's not being developed. I think truly, and I think here's the problem. And Miller will get over this. He's going to get burned on it this time, but I think he'll get some scar tissue and toughen up. I think Miller was just thrilled to death to get him. Mm-hmm. And I think he doesn't want to upset him. He wants to see if there's any way he can possibly keep him for 2 years, which I don't know. But I think he's just happy to have him. And I think that's a disservice to a Romeo Langford, because I'm not seeing Romeo Langford develop like I think Archie Miller's capable of developing him. And that's the commentary I would give about the relationship right now between Archie Miller, Indiana basketball, and Romeo Langford. So I don't know if that bodes if he decides to go to the NBA and say, to hell with it, I'm not getting anything out of this now. I'm getting, my image is getting a little tarnished here. I'll get it in the NBA, or if they can come to some mental mind, to melding here, Vulcan mind melding, where they like, I've got to develop you. I've got to make you a good outside shooter. I've got to put different parts into your game that aren't there. And I would think that that's the persona Archie Miller wants to create in Indiana, is taking great players and making them greater. Knight did that with Isaiah. Knight made Isaiah as great a player as Isaiah was. Knight made Isaiah a better player, and Isaiah would be the first one to ever tell you that. Alford would tell you the same thing. Knight made him a better player by challenging him in areas where he was not proficient at, and making him be responsible for those areas as well. So, what's your opinion on that?
No,
Mike,
I
jump
agree
in.
with that.
Mike, I know you have an opinion on that too. Jump in, please.
I don't have
I
an
agree
opinion
with that.
because Brian's only got to get about another minute. So go ahead, Brian.
All right.
I agree with that. I think this is the first real top-end guy that Archie Miller's really had in his career. And so it's a learning process. Like you said, I think you hit the nail square on the head. I think he'll learn from this, but I think we're seeing growing pains from both sides.
All right. We'll pick that up because there'll be more that'll happen too later on down the road as recruiting process heats up here toward the end of the season. And they got to go, Brian. Thank you for being a part of the show. I learn every time I talk to you. Not unlike Goodpaster, which I just learned to hate.
Yeah.
You guys know I love coming on every week. I appreciate it.
All right, Brian.
We will
have you back next Tuesday. Does that sound good?
Sounds perfect.
All right, guys. Make sure you check Brian Rauf out at Fansided and Busting Brackets. BRauf33 on Twitter. Correct, Brian?
Correct. BRauf33. BRAUF 33.
All right, guys. We're going to let Brian go. We will be back in a minute with Bobby Sheridan from the Sheridan Report.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, this is Dennis Taylor, host of the Ringside Boxing Show, inviting you to join us every week right here on the Grueling Truth Sports Network for a high-energy romp through the always fascinating world of professional boxing. We give you 90 scintillating minutes that includes insight from our expert analysts, professional boxer Travis Hartman, boxing journalist Rizwan Zahid, and nationally known author and boxing writer John J. Risponti. We give you an update on the United Kingdom boxing scene from British correspondent Paul McLaughlin, and amazing tours through the storied past of professional boxing with our historian Christopher James Shelton. Not to mention a 10-year legacy of more than 500 world-class guests. If you're a boxing junkie, the Ringside Boxing Show is the tonic you're going to need every week. Check us out and discover why we have the most listened to podcast on the Grueling Truth Sports Network.
The hottest, sweatiest show on West Coast radio.
All right, guys, we're back on Surviving Events. I'm Mike Goodpaster here with Steve Risley. I want to thank Brian Rauf again from Fansided to come on and talk a little college basketball today. We'll have Brian back on Tuesday. Of course, now it is time for the main event. Help us welcome to the show from the Sheridan Report, Bobby Sheridan. How you doing, Bobby?
The main event, Mike? The main event?
Yeah, you're the main event. What I want to know is this real quick, because Steve likes the golf stuff. Is there really... This event this weekend is called the PGA Waste Management Phoenix Open.
I guess so. I think I don't know how many years it's been named, at least a couple, and just sponsorship, I guess.
Steve?
Interesting name, isn't it?
Steve?
Yeah.
Who do you think's going to win the Waste Management Open?
This is an odd tournament because it's a tournament unlike a lot of other golf. So it's kind of like, I don't know, Bobby, next week, do they go to Pebble Beach next week and then come to L.A.? Is that the way it goes?
I'm not sure, Steve.
Yeah, I don't know either. But anyway, this is a unique tournament because it has the famed 16th hole. Mike, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it, and I know you're not a big golf fan. Justifiably, that's okay. They actually enclosed the entire hole into like a stadium. It's about a 150-yard par 3, and there is seating all the way around the entire hole, and it is a beer fest. And it takes a special kind, like guys like Tiger and them won't even go there to play because it's so distracting for them. And then the Thunderbirds, and I've been to this tournament a couple of times down in Phoenix. The Thunderbirds, which is their big social event which puts on this golf tournament. It is a magnanimous week of partying. I remember sitting on stage listening to Huey Lewis and the News, standing next to John Daly drinking Jack and Cokes with John Daly. And I don't smoke, but I was getting enough smoke off his cigarettes that I felt like I was smoking and popping JD, Jack Daniels and Cokes with John Daly. And it's that kind of an event. So to say that the normal guys, the like a Phil Mickelson or a Tiger Woods or a Dustin Johnson are generally not the guys that win this tournament. I mean, I saw you had Schauffele and Matsuyama.
Yep.
Matsuyama, I'll buy.
Like
Schauffele, I think Schauffele's a guy that'll get a little rattled in this and kind of not be able to deal with this, because it takes an idiot to win this tournament, basically. You're always, Mickelson has done it before. He's got that personality that loves to play to the crowds and things like that. So this is one of the tournaments where you got to think out of the box to pick a winner. In my opinion, you got to watch the 16th hole alone. You just got to turn it on tomorrow. It'll be on the Golf Channel, I'm sure. And you just watch the 16th hole. And they put on jerseys because it's Super Bowl week. They actually start the tournament early on Sunday morning, so it's over before Super Bowl starts. And it's just all the players. They throw jerseys on them. All the players walk in. They have hats. They toss out. Everybody's walking down. And if you miss the green, you're booed incessantly all the way. Caddies have races with the golf bags down to the green. They have caddy races. I mean, it's such a unique event for the PGA Tour, which generally golf's a very stoic event, that this is just a very fun week, and the Thunderbirds do a phenomenal job of putting this tournament on. And it's the largest attended non-major tournament of the year. Is the Phoenix Open.
Wow, that's awesome information. I didn't know much of what you just said. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's played at the TPC Scottsdale at the Princess Hotel, or TPC Princess, Scottsdale Princess Hotel. It's in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
I played the course many times. It's a real fun. It's not a difficult course to play. It's a very fun course to play, but the atmosphere is to die for.
Well, that's worth tuning in for, and for some of your fans that want to watch that, you can also go on the NBC app, which it used to be the PGA Tour Live app, and they've now NBC has
MC Gold. I think they call it MC Gold.
Yeah, MC Gold, and it's worth it. I mean, for like $50 for the year, that you can tune in tomorrow morning early before the Golf Channel even picks it up, and you can follow groups. And I know that they have a match tomorrow. Fowler against one of the other big names is a matchup tomorrow. I started to look at the matchups just before we were talking.
Right.
And it's 7 a.m.
I
featured Gold matchup.
I did buy that just because I enjoy watching Tiger. And I'm really free to watch golf on TV. I want to watch Tiger. I love watching him play. I root for him, and all the other guys are great. I love the game of golf. I like to play golf or watch Tiger, one of the two. So I bought that package just because they'll feature Tiger every time he's on. Where if you get on the Golf Channel, they're going to show more of the leaders, and you're going to see Tiger if he's making good shots. I'd rather just sit there on my time on my computer and just watch Tiger for the full 18 holes of golf. It's just how I enjoy watching golf. So that's a good deal on that for sure. The NBC Gold package, probably a little bit better than the ESPN Plus package, where you just get reruns of Bobby Knight choking players. So, which is not to be discounted in any way, shape, or form. It's not to be discounted.
No, but I know what you're saying. But yeah, that's going to be Finau against Fowler. That's a matchup that they earmarked, specifically for that. And I've got it also. I bought it. I didn't watch last week's, or I didn't have time. But I'm going to tune in tomorrow morning and watch a couple of those matchups early before the Golf Channel picks it up. You can pick and choose your matches if you want to watch, pretty much. They'll have featured marriage. They'll know what people want to watch. If you want to see Rory play, if you want to see Phil play, they'll just put on the featured matches, and then they'll just cover them throughout the whole 18 holes. I'm hoping the Masters will do something like that. I don't think get the Masters involved. The Masters is so sticky on how they do their TV coverage, which just amazes me that the Masters just doesn't say, our first tee time's at 6 o'clock. We're on from 6 o'clock till the last guy hits the last ball in the hole, because everybody would watch the hell out of it. Right.
I would watch the Masters from sun up to sundown. who had that ability. Mike, are you still on?
Oh, yeah. You guys were talking about the Masters.
There's a lot of people, Mike, you know this, and I don't act like I'm trying to teach you something here, but for the fans, there's a lot of people that really love golf, and we could do some shows. I mean, Steve obviously is very versed, much more than I am on this, and there's a lot of golf fans out there, and tied into the betting, we talked about the matchups. You can make some money on these things if you know what you're doing.
There's not only that. We have a friend, Brian Hammonds, who was a 25-year announcer for the Golf Channel. I'm godfather.
That's right. I heard him on
one of his daughters. Yeah, and he's been on our show, and he definitely will come on from time to time and talk golf if we ever want to do it, and probably something for the majors. Bring Brian on and bring you on and talk about. He can tell you who's playing, because he still has the phone numbers of all these tour players, and I mean, and he can talk to them. And that's really the way you do your research and stuff. Yeah. Brian will come on. He's been on several times on our show.
Well, yeah, I heard him. I was introduced to him by you guys, obviously, and that was not too long ago when I started, when I found your show, and he was great. A great listen. That was a great interview. Anybody that doesn't familiar with him, you can go on, follow him on Twitter. He does a pretty good job on there.
Yeah.
All right. What's our big game for tonight?
Last night, yesterday we were 3-1. We gave out the college game on air, and I was really pleased with that effort. But I was more pleased with our Cavaliers. We had the Cavs yesterday and over the Wizards, and the Pacers play the Wizards tonight, and that's a game that I like. It's not one that we're going to talk about. It's not a top play, but we roll into the next day, and there's a game tonight that if you want to watch the NBA, Steve, this is a great game to watch tonight. It's Portland and Utah, and both teams are rested, and this is somewhat like a playoff series type deal. Utah's up 2-1 on the season series, but Portland just beat them 109-104 at Utah. So the way I look at this, it's kind of like, all right, this is game 4. These two teams really go at it, and it's a really good game to watch. You will really like watching Utah, how they play. And Portland uses the post a lot. Nurkic passing the ball, and Portland, when they beat them last time, they really did they shot the ball tremendous. They were 45 of 90 from the field that day. Their bench was 14 for 23. They really found something with Nurkic. He had 6 assists in the second half. This is their 6'11", 7 foot, 6'10", post player. And, Lillard and Nurkic were the only guys to shoot free throws, 14. So, they were really just hot from the perimeter. They beat Utah. That's the only loss Utah's had in the last 10 games. Utah's reeled off 3 in a row since that game. And you look at Utah in that game, was shot 39%, 7 of 33 from threes, and had 15 turnovers. So, when I look at this matchup tonight, I really see Utah going back down there, meaning returning the favor. This game's at Portland tonight, and really playing a great game. I don't care what the points are. It doesn't matter. I knew it'd be around pick'em, and it turns out that Portland's a point, and now up to a 1.5 favorite. And that's okay. It's going to come down to who wins this ball game. And I think Utah's going to return the favor. They're a better team. They're better with defensive numbers. They're better with offensive efficiency numbers. They have more weapons. They shoot the three better. Donovan Mitchell is playing unbelievable basketball right now, getting to the rim and causing problems. Ricky Rubio is now back for them, playing extended minutes. This is a key to the ball game tonight. When he played against Portland last time, he was just back in the lineup and only played 13 minutes. He's going to play probably double that tonight, and that gives them 2 point guards on the floor to match up with Portland. And then you've got Gobert. We've talked about him before. He's just such a presence on defense, and anything going to the rim, teams shoot about 25% going to the rim against Utah. And that's a big part of what Lillard does for Portland. He'll be back in the lineup tonight. And so our top play, we have two. One of them is Utah over Portland. And I will mention one other thing. You look at playoff seeding. Utah right now is in the 7th spot in the West, but only 3 back of the 3rd spot. And they're coming like a freight train. So there's plenty of time, still to get this done. But why is that important? Well, the 3rd spot or 4th spot will give you home court advantage in the first round. And so Portland's actually in the 4th spot, 2 games ahead of Utah. So this is a big game for Utah. They have plans on hosting a series in the first round, and they will. Golden State's going to be 1, Denver's going to be 2, and then the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all up for grabs. And Utah, you can mark it down right now. They're going to grab one of those 3 or 4 spots. So this is a good game tonight for them. I think they'll go to Portland and win it. That's our top play of the day.
And you know what, Bobby, I would love to watch that game tonight, but unfortunately they have a vote off. They have a veto vote tonight on Big Brother Celebrity Edition, and Modern Family's on tonight. So I think that my TV time is going to be dedicated to seeing if Lindsay Lohan's mom gets whacked off of Big Brother Celebrity Edition. Ryan Lochte got whacked out last week. They took Ryan Lochte off, which is, an Olympian. And Lolo Jones is up for it. She's going to be gone this week. So
that's exciting. And
you can't ever miss Modern Family. It's one of the best shows on TV.
It sucks.
Steve,
it's contrived. It's all there for a reason, which we'll get into on another show someday.
All right.
You asked me a couple weeks ago about what's the secret of the success, or some of the tricks of the trade. I can tell you one of them is that I have no time. I don't even know what that even is, what you're telling me. Like I don't even think I've even heard of anything. I've heard of Ryan Lochte, but there's just no TV time for me. I'll tell you that, and that's okay. But I respect and appreciate those that do love those shows. And
I don't. They're stupid shows.
Yeah, they are. They're mindless.
Yeah,
they're definitely mindless.
See, I would rather learn something while I watch TV than just mindlessly look at things. But, all right, so what's our moment in history today?
This one is a bit more serious. I don't mean serious. I mean, it's a great moment. It's Magic Johnson's comeback in 1996. This was the day he came back, 5-year layoff from the HIV. And in between those 5 years, he even coached the team, if you remember, Steve. I mean, I think he had like 40 games he coached that year or something like that. And
what are you talking about? Magic Johnson coached that team from the day he was a rookie on that team. I mean, come on. Give me a break. I mean, he never managed to fire Riley, but he did manage to get Westhead fired. But I think the day Magic Johnson came onto that team, he started coaching that basketball team. Give me a break.
Well,
Bobby.
You're right. No, but you know what I'm saying. He in his 5 years of being out,
he took a pay cut. Magic took a pay cut to coach the Lakers for those 40 games.
He played.
That's all he did.
Coached. He was the player coach.
Yeah. So he was.
But what I'm saying, what I'm trying to inform the audience, the fans, that that 5 years was a lot happened. He had the HIV and the AIDS thing, and we all know about that. And then he coached the team and then made his official comeback. This was in '96 on this day. I can remember it so clearly. It was a huge deal out here, and he took the court. It was against Golden State, and it was a much different Magic. He was all of a sudden, not the tall, lanky point guard Magic. He was the big, burly, bruising power forward Magic, and he had 19, 11, and 9 or something. I mean, it's on the report, but it was almost a triple double, and it was he was shooting hook shots inside. He was posting up. He was passing out of the post and doing all these great things, and just it was a big moment.
How did they? How did they let him come back? I mean, I kind of I remember it vaguely, but I mean, there was that whole deal where he was kind of
back.
Well, he had HIV. I mean, if he spilled blood on somebody,
whatever. He had HIV.
Well, in those 5 years, there was just a lot of.
Yeah,
That's
supposedly
in those 5 years
he had
you know,
HIV. I could give you guys another story if you want.
Well, sure, Mike. Let's hear it.
You want? All right.
Sure.
You ever hear of Tommy the Duke Morrison, former WBO heavyweight champion of the
Tommy
world?
Gunn. Tommy Gunn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Rocky fame.
Supposedly, he died of AIDS, correct?
Correct.
What if I told you that is a complete lie, and we have proof? It was taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court wouldn't hear the case. Actually, I'm friends with his wife, Tricia, who has been on our show on multiple occasions, and the story was this. In 1995-96, he was offered a ton of money to claim that he had AIDS and to retire from boxing. And the story I've been told by multiple people in the know, and these are big people, was that Magic Johnson was offered the same thing. Tommy Morrison turned it down. Tommy Morrison in 1996 was tested before a fight in Las Vegas for AIDS and was found to test positive. The problem with that is this. At the time, there was no requirement to be tested for AIDS. But for some reason, they drew his blood and claimed that he had AIDS. It basically destroyed his career. He fought one time in China after that. He fought a couple times right before he died.
Hey, Mike, can I ask you one question real quick?
Yeah.
Just to finish your story, but was he tested for HIV or AIDS? Because there's two different things there. Because Magic does not have AIDS.
Wait a second. This is the thing.
Magic has HIV. He does not have AIDS.
Okay. Well, this is the thing. Tommy Morrison on his death certificate, there is, unless you listen to the rest of the story.
Okay. I just wanted to interject that so people can follow along.
This is the thing.
In a better way. So go on.
On the death certificate for Tommy Morrison, it says that there was no infection, there was no HIV, there was no AIDS. It says that. So what you had was, in 1991, there was a huge stigma on this, right? Having AIDS.
Right.
There was a huge stigma on being gay. But all of a sudden, you get this supposedly heterosexual athlete that comes out and all of a sudden has AIDS. And when everybody else is dying from it, a year later, he's playing in the Olympics. You know, he's playing in the NBA All-Star game. They let him come back and play in 1996. And this is after 3 years before, I think in 93, after that, or 92, the 92-93 season, after he played in the Olympics with no issue. You remember there was a little cut on his eye in a preseason game because he was going to come back in 93. And everybody freaked out, including Karl Malone, said they didn't want to play with him, so he came out. But the thing about Morrison is this. What killed Tommy Morrison was not AIDS. And ESPN did a documentary about this, claiming that Morrison had AIDS, doing all this stuff. You can go on to grillingtruth.net, go in a search bar, and just look up Tricia Morrison, and you'll find this. But what actually killed him was they did surgery on him and left a 12-foot thing of gauze inside of his body. And he got an infection. And when they operated on him a year later, they pulled this gauze out. Why was the gauze put in there? It infected him. He died from this. Once again, anybody that questions this, I have the actual documents for when he died that says that he did not have this. And it makes me wonder when I have other people that have showed me all this documentation, and everything's proven he didn't have it, but they said he did. And what all these people are telling me, he got the same offer Magic Johnson got. Magic Johnson's fine 30 years later. It makes me wonder what happened there. And Magic Johnson had enough money to buy into the Dodgers, which cost a lot of money now. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying that Magic Johnson didn't have it. I'm just saying when you hear the story of Tommy Morrison, and like I said, we've got a ringside boxing show with her on it where she goes into this for an hour. I did an interview before the Supreme Court decided not to hear the case a couple of months ago. We had about a 45-minute interview. And when you hear all the evidence, and she sent me all the court documents, it just sounds like something fishy could have been going on with Magic since Tommy Morrison turned down a deal and then ended up dying. They claimed he had it and have basically drug his name through the mud for the last 20 years.
I'm floored. I don't get your point here, Mike.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, you know
okay,
what? Most people wouldn't. But all I can tell you is this.
Hang on. You talk.
Okay, go ahead.
I separate Tommy Morrison from Magic Johnson. I don't know what Tommy Morrison's issues were, but you're going to try and convince me that Magic Johnson took a deal to claim he has HIV and doesn't have HIV.
Yeah. The same deal was offered to Tommy Morrison.
All right, well, I'm just going to go on record and say right now, these are not the views expressed by the GrillingTruth.net or Survive in Advance or by all party members of this event. In case Magic happens to be listening and wants to sue our ass, I would not. That's pretty on a limb.
I never said that he didn't. What I said was this. Okay. This is what happened to Tommy Morrison. And this is what I said. Is that not what I said, Bobby? I just wonder if this had something to do with that.
I took it that you said that Magic turned the deal down.
No, I would actually. You couldn't take it that way because Tommy Morrison turned the deal down.
All right. Well, or Magic. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm just. Yeah. I just said. What? All right. Well, you know what? That's what happens with the American Medical Association. It's what happens with Big Pharma. They want people sick.
Well, I mean, that's a lot to digest, and I was vaguely aware of the Morrison stuff, and I think they connect only because of the HIV part, but I'm with Steve, I think they're completely different situations here, completely different angles that we're looking at that whole concept of AIDS and HIV between those two athletes, The deal with Magic was when he got this, it was the people didn't know about this infection and didn't really know about what it meant. We thought he was going to die in 2 years, and we thought that if you take his hand,
by the time Magic Johnson got it, we knew about AIDS. I mean, we knew about HIV and AIDS by the time Magic got it. Yeah, right. And Magic, I would guess Magic spends probably six figures a month on a cocktail of drugs that keeps his HIV at bay. I've heard that story too, and I can't validate any of that. I mean, I don't speak to Cookie or anybody like that says he does that, but I'm guessing the fact that Magic has the luxury and the money and everything to keep his health in tip-top shape, to have the money to financially afford all of the big pharma meds and all the AMA doctors to do it. He's a very lucky person in that sense. And Magic, I believe he's almost a billionaire. I believe he's earned all his money because he's made as much money off the court in his business ventures as he's made on the court as an athlete. Probably more so.
Absolutely.
I know he owns a chain of movie theaters. Yeah, he owns car dealerships. Magic is so tied into big business ventures that I don't think he even touches what he makes off the basketball arena that he makes on it. And he's a very small owner in the Dodgers. He's not a majority owner in the Dodgers at all. He owns maybe 4 or 5% of the Dodgers. He's not a player in there. He's a figurehead for them that they put up there and say, Magic's one of our owners. So that's a whole different case there. He's Hollywood. I mean, you want that face and that smile, and he's tied to any kind of business you can because he draws and attracts to it. The one that suffered from all this was and probably somebody, Mike, you probably won't even, maybe you will know, and Bobby, you may know, was who Tim Richmond is?
Yeah, NASCAR driver.
Yeah, Tim Richmond was a very famous NASCAR driver who was the ultimate playboy in NASCAR in the, I think, the late 70s. I mean, he was rivaled to be as good as Dale Earnhardt, but he was a playboy, and he contracted, and he died of HIV and AIDS before they knew what HIV and AIDS was, really. But he did it. He contracted heterosexually, and not through allegedly. And again, I don't have the, I'm not in a crystal ball, but I know that he was one of the first athletes ever to die of AIDS, pretty much because of his promiscuity, which is pretty much how it's believed and widely assumed that Magic contracted his HIV was through promiscuity. Tommy Morrison, I don't know, Mike. I don't know what is. I assume he did it through promiscuity too. I would assume that, but
yeah, you would assume that, other than the fact they didn't have it, but that's all right.
Well, okay. Well, if he did, if he did.
If he did. It's still if he did. Okay.
Okay. Well, and that's an interesting story, and maybe we should do a show on that.
We have.
I would love
We've done shows on that.
Well, I've been a part of it, so I would love to be a part of that. So I'd love to learn about that because that's interesting. But
it's
difficult for me to
story. It's crazy.
It's difficult for me to tie in Tommy Morrison's situation to Magic's situation and say they're in any way similar at all. And I don't know. I probably know more about Magic's than I do Tommy Morrison's. I know you know more about Tommy Morrison's. You probably know a lot about both, Mike. So, I'm not going to challenge you on it. I'm just going to question you on it. That's all.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up I've talked a little bit about this.
Let's talk about Karl Malone being the second leading scorer in the NBA.
What I was just going to say, though, is you would think that Magic Johnson would go down as being, when you think about him, just the greatest basketball player and all this, but it's what he's done since he got off the court that's just amazing, with all the aid stuff, that first and now the businesses and how he's just been so successful since retiring. And it's a good example for all of us that whatever we thought we were known for, there's still more out there to achieve. There's still more that you can be known for even after your most successful ventures. And, Magic Johnson he's that guy,
Yeah, he's a rare personality. I mean, there's not a lot like Magic Johnson anywhere in the world that had the staying power that he had with his charisma, charm, smile, his ability, and his influence ability. So he's one of the original influencers in social media before social media became social media.
Steve, when you faced him in that season, 78, 79, I think it was, right?
2 years.
You knew he was a great player. That's obvious. But, would you have had any idea that he would have wound up what he was? Was it just – you have any thoughts on playing against him?
He was a great player. How he was portrayed is how he was. There was no phoniness to Magic Johnson. That smile was genuine. He loved to play basketball. He loved to beat you. And he loved everybody that competed against him. He took it as fun. Never took it personally. The greatest player I ever had the privilege of playing against was Magic Johnson, bar none. Not even close, and that includes Isaiah Thomas. I played with Isaiah and against Isaiah in practice. But Magic was just Magic. It was Magic. He was that. He influenced the whole persona of the game every time he got on the court. And who could predict that he's going to be a billionaire, rivaling Michael Jordan? Most of Jordan's money came off, his championships and off the Nike deals with the Jordan brand. Magic has diversified himself into where he's made so much money outside of just sports and other business ventures that it says, he had a lot more diversity in his thought process than even Michael Jordan did. Michael Jordan made money off his brand. Magic Johnson made money because he was an influencer and people wanted to be around him. And people today, if you follow him on Twitter or Instagram, he's at some conference speaking to thousands of people every day. And motivating people in businesses and corporations, salespeople, whatever, doing a great job. And, Magic's one of the greatest athletes, influencing athletes of all time, I would think. Mike, you're being awful quiet. Are we disappointing you?
I'm reading something.
Okay.
Super Bowl line still staying steady?
Still staying steady. I didn't lead off with that because I don't think we're going to have much to talk about for a couple of days. I read some articles, and they're all projecting, what's going to happen and this and that. And it's a big story about nothing until anything happens. So, what's going to wind up here, we'll see. And it is going to be interesting, but there's just so much focus about one game, and that's and that's why we have so much discussion about it. But I think you just have to wait until Saturday if you're a Rams guy and see if you can get the 3. And if you don't, then, and if you're New England, you're probably already in. So it's just the big bets are coming, and when's the Rams money going to show up hard, and how much more New England hard money's out there. And there's probably a little bit of both. But the answer is still the same. And I think we'll see something Friday. I think you had a really good point, Mike, when you talked about that last week. About I think Friday, Saturday morning, we're going to see some movement on that. And until then, we don't really say too much. There's a lot of talk about the props, which we can maybe run through a few of those.
They've got Roger Goodell on talking right now about refereeing and officiating, Mike.
Man, about a week and a half too late.
Yeah, but that's the NFL. They're very reactionary.
Yeah, well, that's all they do.
They hope things go away. The NFL is geniuses at hoping things just kind of go away, like Kaepernick, just go away. Taking a knee,
right.
Go away. That's kind of how the NFL operates. It's like if we just sit here and be quiet long enough, hopefully Trump will do something stupid and it'll go away. It's kind of their mentality.
I'm sure he will. It just isn't going to go away.
Yeah, well, he's being forced to deal with the refereeing issue right now. So, I mean, that's not going to go away. They're going to have to change that rule.
But, all right, what time are we at? Oh, we're an hour and a half in already. I want to remind people, since it's Super Bowl week, we will have former Chicago Bear and Seattle Seahawk Bob Newton on the show at 3 o'clock Eastern today. Now, Steve's going to whine because he wasn't invited, but Steve doesn't know who Bob Newton is.
I know Bob Newhart.
Sir Isaac Bob Newton. Let's see. But no, we had to have Brian on today. That and Bob didn't play in the Super Bowl, but Bob did play with Gale Sayers, Dick Butkus, and also played on the Seattle Seahawks expansion team in 1976 through 1981. We will have him on at 3 o'clock Eastern today on thegruelingtruth.net. You can hear it live there. You can hear it recorded, probably starting tomorrow on thegruelingtruth.net. Bobby, anything you want to close with?
No, sir. Let's just keep things going in the right direction, and I'm really looking forward. This isn't a plug at all. I'm really looking forward to Levon Kirkland. I know you're having him on Thursday. Is that right?
Yes, tomorrow Levon Kirkland is supposed to be our guest.
That's great. Hopefully that, happens, and that'll be a good interview, and Rocky Blair on Friday. So it's a good finish for the Grueling Truth this week, and no, I got nothing else. You want to watch a good basketball team, you watch the Utah Jazz tonight. I'll end with that.
All right, Steve, anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, we know there is. It'll be when I start this. All right, guys, thegruelingtruth.net. You can follow us at Survive in Advance. Make sure you go to the Sheridan Report. Check out Bobby Sheridan. You can hear all our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Steve Risley, Brian Rauf, Bobby Sheridan, I remembered everybody's name, and Steve didn't interrupt me. I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.